what are some of the political, social implications of longer lives?
Yeah, that is huge. You know, by 2050, 40 years from now, I'll be gone, you'll be here, okay? And there'll be 1 million centenarians. There will be 1 out of 4 people will be over 65. So this is a big change. Now it's, I believe, 1 out of 9 people are over 65. There are 90,000 centenarians, so this is a big change. And I think there's all kinds of possible changes in the culture. I mean, we now have a youth-driven culture. I think, you know, you're going to have more pressure to change that. The economics are really troubling because what we're going to see, and I think you can already see it, is that there'll be 2 classes of elderly people, just like now there are 2 classes of most Americans, fairly poor and fairly well off, middle class dissolving. And I think you'll see that with aging. Aging, people will either be upper middle class and old, or they will be working class or poor and not so old, because they won't make it that far. And that's a big healthcare problem. People are talking quite a bit about it, and this is worldwide, by the way. The big difference between our country and the third world is that this country will get old after it gets somewhat affluent. Okay, the third world will get old before it gets affluent. China is a good example. India is a good example. Southeast Asia, and that is going to be very difficult for their economies to handle. So, the clearest single evidence of how this is going to change is that a child born in an affluent nation in the year 2000 has a 50% chance of being a centenarian, right? Living to 2100. A child who wasn't born in the third world will probably only have about a 10% chance.
What happened in the last 20 years to create this emphasis on expanding the lifespan?
Yeah, this is one of the great untold success stories of modern science. The old assumptions about aging were 3. That it was inevitable, that it happened in all species, that it was universal, and that there was nothing that you could really do to expand maximum lifespan. Human beings, 120 years, that's it. Mice, 2.5 years, that's it. In the last 20 years, mainstream gerontological and biological medicine have overturned all of those assumptions. We now know that aging is not universal. There are organisms, fish, various amphibians, etc., that live 150, 160 years, well past what they should live for their size, with almost no erosion of their ability to fight disease, etc. They're perfectly intact. Number 2, we now know you can double or triple the lifespan of, let's say, a fruit fly or a worm or even a yeast by delaying reproduction. Now, you know, that's the kind of thing, don't try that at home, right? You're probably not going to get the benefit, and it's not worth it. But that overturns the old assumption, right, that you cannot interfere with it. And then lastly, can it be expanded? Well, those showed that it was, and that there are actually specific interventions that you can take molecularly and with compounds that extend the life of mammals. So that really set everything on its head. So the old dogmas fell away, and what you have is this new era of everyone claiming various chunks of science to support their thesis or what they're selling.
So it sounds like anti-aging science is progressing. How much of it is quackery, snake oil stuff, and how much is real?
Well, I think the science of longevity, of aging, is quite legitimate. And it is established in all of the highest spheres of academic medicine and science, because these are legitimate pursuits to understand a molecular pathway, a genetic pathway that might lead to an expanded lifespan. What is, you know, questionable at best and really bogus usually are the medical claims that are based on the science. The big one, that, you know, if you want to cut right to it, is growth hormone. You will see, you probably have seen on like the health pages of the Times, you'll see down in the corner there's this guy who's like grandpa. But grandpa's got, you know, muscles like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
So growth hormone is one way to, that people suggest to stop the aging process, and fixing organs is another. Can you discuss that a bit? How are we doing on that front?
So that's what I call the engineering approach to anti-aging. You know, the crudest way to put it is, you know, you're going to build new organs as the various ones give out. Kind of a whole organ approach to what we now call surgery, you know, or heart replacement. You know, this probably has a lot more going for it than particularly the hormonal approach in terms of expanding significantly quality lifespan. And many of us are already supporters of it. We call it stem cell science. Stem cells fundamentally trade on that notion that we have naive cells inside the bones of our body, right? They haven't differentiated into various kinds of tissue. If we could find a way to take, you know, my stem cells and guide them to become new muscles here, these muscles are giving out, I have a carpal tunnel, then you would extend the life of my, functional life of my hand. And so that is being applied body-wide. This sounds like Frankensteinism, right? So, but think about this. There's a guy in Spain, a middle-aged fellow who had throat cancer, cancer of the trachea. Beat the cancer, but trachea really devastated from the chemo. So the scientists were able to take his trachea, take all of the cells out of it, and infuse it with his stem cells, replace it in the man, and it literally grew. And so it's his tissue again. He doesn't have to take immune drugs, like a lot of times replacement surgery requires. So there's a proof of principle that it can work. How much we're willing to invest and how patient we're willing to be is another question.